There's a story making waves on social media involving Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith. And like most things online, it's being blown way out of proportion. The claim? That Geno got into a sideline altercation during a youth 7-on-7 football game where he was coaching. Headlines are flashing phrases like, Geno Smith tries to fight someone at a youth game, and fans are running wild with it. But if you take even a moment to look deeper, you'll see how misleading this really is. This clip, now trending across TikTok and Twitter, shows Geno walking the sideline and saying one thing. That's why I get paid the big bucks. No punches, no threats, no brawl. Just a moment, captured, twisted, and turned into clickbait. And yet people are reacting like he charged into the stands. Comments accusing Geno of being arrogant, out of control, even disrespectful. But when you actually watch the footage, it's clear. None of that happened. There was no fight, no physical confrontation. Security steps in briefly, Geno walks away, and that's the end of it. And here's what makes this even more frustrating. Geno Smith didn't have to be there. The man's made $35 million a year and still shows up to coach young athletes in his hometown of Dade County. That's commitment. That's heart. That's giving back. But instead of celebrating that, people are twisting the narrative. This isn't a scandal. It's a snapshot. And it says more about how quick we are to judge than it does about Geno Smith. What Geno Smith is doing goes far beyond football. He's investing his time, energy, and experience into the next generation. That speaks louder than any headline ever could. Just a few weeks ago, he was spotted training with Alabama wide receivers. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Because the game still matters to him. Because he still loves it. If you followed Geno's time with the Seahawks, especially under PeteCarroll, you already know. This guy is built different. He's known for his toughness, his tireless work ethic, and his fierce competitive edge. And that's what showed up in that viral sideline video. Not violence, not aggression, but raw intensity. In fact, Geno addressed the situation himself. He tweeted, "Having fun with the game I love. But man, the need for clicks and negativity takes away from the great event that happened this past weekend. All the kids had fun and competed. All around great event. This is how we talk in Dade County. I'm sorry you might not understand. Carry on." That's a man defending his passion and his hometown. And he's right. Not every environment is the same. Not every place is soft-spoken or polished. Some places speak with grit, with pride, with edge. In Dade County, that's just normal. That's culture. The truth? Geno wasn't trying to fight anyone. There was no confrontation, just a fiery competitor caught on camera, misrepresented by a headline-hungry internet. But let's pivot from the noise and focus on what really matters. The Raiders might have finally solved their biggest problem, quarterback. Over the last 2 seasons, it's been rough. Let's be honest, no disrespect to the previous QBs, but the team hasn't had someone who can truly read a defense, control a game, and deliver when it counts. Even if you weren't a huge Derek Carr supporter, you could see the gap once he was gone. There's a difference between a quarterback who can make tough throws in clutch moments and one who simply can't. And Geno Smith? He's the kind of guy who can. There were plenty of games last season where the defense showed up, forced punts, grabbed key stops, and all the offense needed to do was capitalize. But it didn't happen. Now, that might finally change. With Geno under center, the Raiders could have the steady, smart, and battle-tested leader they've been missing. This season isn't just another year for the Raiders. It feels like the beginning of something real. With a new quarterback in place and talent across the roster, there's reason to believe this team could finally make a serious push. But while excitement builds on the field, things are getting complicated off it, particularly when it comes to left tackle Colton Miller. A recent report from Vincent Bonsignore, a well-respected insider at the Las Vegas Review-Journal, has stirred the conversation. Bonsignore has long been seen as a voice close to the Raiders' front office, and when he speaks, especially about contract matters, people pay attention. According to his latest update, Miller, the team's long-standing left tackle and anchor since 2018, wants to remain a Raider for life. But whether the front office agrees remains unclear. Bonsignore writes that after a slow start last season, due in part to off-season shoulder surgery, Miller bounced back and delivered high-level play once again. Still, the Raiders are in evaluation mode. They're weighing whether to pay Miller a hefty extension, reportedly in the $20 to $23 million per year range, or eventually transition to third-round rookie Charles Grant, who could develop this season and take over by 2026. It's a classic NFL decision, proven veteran versus cost-effective upside. Grant's progression under new offensive coordinator Chip Kelly will play a major role in what happens next. The report suggests the Raiders are taking a wait-and-see approach. They'll monitor Miller's performance in 2025 while watching how quickly Grant adapts. Come next offseason, they'll have to choose: reinvest in a known leader or roll the dice on youth. But here's where things get interesting. Behind the scenes, it seems Miller may have already pushed for a new deal. Reports hint that his camp reached out early this offseason, possibly right after general manager JohnSpytek was hired, signaling a desire to get extended. It's believed the Raiders didn't respond with urgency, and that silence may have triggered Miller's side to go public. Now the negotiation isn't just private, it's in the spotlight. Whether this was a strategic move by Miller's agents or a last-ditch effort to force the Raiders' hand, it's clear something is brewing. Miller's played through injuries, led the offensive line for years, and remained one of the few consistent forces during turbulent seasons. But the NFL is a business, and in Las Vegas, that business is always evolving. The question now: will the Raiders reward loyalty and performance or pivot toward the future? At this point, all signs point to Colton Miller preparing to sit out, and honestly, it's not surprising. In today's NFL, if you're a top-tier offensive tackle, especially one in your prime, you don't play the final year of your contract without an extension. It's just not how the business works. There are 64 starting tackles in the league. If you're one of the top 10 to 15 like Miller, you protect your future. This is his last chance at a major deal, and he knows it. Even Max Crosby, one of the Raiders' core leaders, made it clear on his own platform. He wasn't playing without a new deal. He stood firm, and now Miller's doing the same. According to reports, Miller skipped the first week of OTAs. A voluntary move, sure, but a deliberate one. His camp made it known, via NFL insider Jeremy Fowler, that he's willing to hold out if progress isn't made. And now, as training camp nears, there's real uncertainty. Will he show, or will the standoff begin? The Raiders might be gearing up to play hardball. They drafted Charles Grant for a reason, and depending on how the front office values Miller's long-term impact, they might decide to move forward without committing top dollar. Here's where GM JohnSpytek enters the picture. His track record on offensive line evaluation is already being questioned. This year, the team passed on Jackson Powers Johnson, arguably the top center prospect, in favor of Graham Barton. Barton's a strong talent, no doubt, but many believed Powers Johnson was the superior player. Decisions like that raise eyebrows. Then there's the developmental pieces. Caleb Rogers, Charles Grant, all promising but unproven. So when Spytek weighs this decision, he's not just betting on dollars. He's betting on projection. The reported range for a Miller extension is around $20 to $23 million per season. If that's truly on the table, it feels like a deal the Raiders should jump on. Miller's proven, durable, and still improving. And at left tackle, players often peak well into their 30s. In fact, many of the league's best tackles maintain elite form into their mid-30s. At $23 million, you're not just paying for performance, you're buying protection, consistency, and leadership. But if Miller's number creeps into the $26 to $27 million range, that's where things get complicated. That's where you pause. And maybe, just maybe, you prepare to pass the torch to a rookie on a team-friendly deal. Still, if Miller holds firm and doesn't report to training camp, this situation could get even more real, very fast. If Colton Miller doesn't plan to suit up for the Raiders this season, and the front office is comfortable moving forward with Charles Grant, then there's only one logical move: trade him. Letting a Pro Bowl caliber left tackle walk for nothing would be a massive mistake. He's too valuable, too experienced, and too important to risk losing for a compensatory pick. If you're not going to pay him, flip him while his value is at its peak. There are teams across the league who would jump at the chance to land a veteran left tackle like Miller. The Bills come to mind, even though they share the conference. Buffalo's aging offensive line and playoff window might make them desperate. Dion Dawkins won't be around forever. Or take the Dolphins, a team that's constantly flirting with contention but struggling to protect their quarterback. There are options, and depending on where those teams finish the year, the Raiders might be able to secure a first-round pick or more. The worst possible outcome: letting the season play out with uncertainty, watching Miller hold out, and then losing him in free agency because you didn't act when it mattered. Players remember when they're valued and when they're not. And here's the risk that's not getting talked about enough. What if DJ Glaze isn't the future? If you move on from Miller and Glaze doesn't develop into a starter, the Raiders won't just be searching for one tackle, they'll be hunting for two. And in today's NFL, tackles are arguably the second most important position on offense behind quarterback. That's a dangerous gamble. The Raiders must get this decision right. Either extend Miller now or trade him before the value disappears. Anything in between is just bad management. Now let's pivot to the final headline of the day, and it's a big one. In a blockbuster move, the Steelers acquired both Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith from the Dolphins. In return, Miami received Minkah Fitzpatrick and a fifth-round pick. On the surface, it's a fair exchange. Ramsey is still a top-5 cornerback when healthy. Jonnu Smith hasn't fully lived up to his potential, but with the right quarterback, he can be dangerous in the red zone. Meanwhile, Fitzpatrick remains one of the premier safeties in the league, arguably a top 15 overall defender. But here's what makes this so interesting. Pittsburgh knows how to reload. They don't just survive these trades, they thrive afterward. The Steelers have one of the best track records in the NFL when it comes to drafting and developing defensive talent. Losing Fitzpatrick might seem like a blow, but you can bet they've already got his replacement lined up. In fact, there are whispers they might even be shopping TJ Watt. And if that happens, don't be shocked if they plug in another impact player almost instantly. That's the difference between an elite front office and one still trying to find its way. And here's the part Raiders fans won't want to hear. Las Vegas missed out on Jalen Ramsey. That's the kind of veteran presence this defense could have used, especially opposite Jack Jones and Nate Hobbs. Instead, he's headed to a team that knows exactly how to maximize his value. As the dust settles from the Ramsey trade, another rumor has started picking up steam, and this one could directly impact the Raiders again. According to CBS Sports and a report from the Miami Herald, the Miami Dolphins have shown interest in Raiders tight end Michael Mayer. With Jonnu Smith now in Pittsburgh, Miami is in the market for a young, capable tight end, and Mayer is firmly on their radar. Insider Omar Kelly reported that the Dolphins have had their eye on Mayer for a while now, and he could be a real target as trade talks continue. Now let's talk about it, because this isn't just speculation. This is the kind of situation that forces front offices to make tough calls. Michael Mayer may not have exploded onto the scene in year one, but let's be clear, he's not a bust. You don't move off of a second-year tight end, especially one with his skill set, just because the box score didn't pop. Some guys take time. Some positions demand patience. Tight end is one of them. Yes, Brock Bowers is a rare exception, but there aren't many of those. After the elite top 5, the production gap between the next 25 tight ends in the league, almost identical. Mayer is already in that mix, and he's only getting better. If you gave him 100 targets, he'd flirt with 1,000 yards. But even more importantly, Mayer brings value most tight ends don't. He can block, and not just get in the way block. He can dominate. Early in his rookie year, his blocking was a weak point. But by the end of the season, he was mauling defenders. Go watch the film. He was burying guys at the point of attack, and with the Raiders' offense evolving, better play calling, improved design, smarter quarterback play, Mayer's role is only going to grow. You don't give up on that kind of player, not this early, not for a short-term return. So while the Dolphins may be interested, and while trade rumors will always swirl, Michael Mayer should be part of the Raiders' future, not their trade block. If the Dolphins are only offering a 4th or 5th round pick for Michael Mayer, the answer should be simple: no deal. Mayer is far more valuable on the field than what you'd get back in the middle rounds of the draft. At just 23 years old, with 2 years left on his rookie contract, he's already a key piece of this offense, and his impact is only growing. Frankly, unless the Dolphins are offering a 2nd round pick or better, the Raiders shouldn't even answer the phone. And let's be real, a 1st rounder isn't happening. But anything less than a 2nd, it's not worth it. The only way a move might make sense is in a player-for-player trade, and even then, it'd have to be for someone that fills a critical need. Miami has some talent on the offensive line, sure, but short of a proven starter, or, in a dream scenario, someone like Tyreek Hill, who has his own swirling trade rumors, it's just not worth entertaining. The Dolphins are desperate. They just moved Jonnu Smith and now have a hole at tight end. Head coach Mike McDaniel could be coaching for his job this season. If that team falters, if they miss the playoffs, he's likely gone. So of course they're looking for guys like Mayer. He fits perfectly in that offense. He's a dynamic run blocker, can chip and release, and helps in both protection and the passing game. But let's not forget, Mayer is only scratching the surface. He barely got used last year in a stale offense under Luke Getsy. The targets weren't there. The opportunities weren't there. But turn on the film, really watch, and you'll see the blocking, the toughness, the physicality. That's the stuff that doesn't show up in stat sheets, but wins football games. Too many fans overlook tight ends who do the dirty work. Mayer does it, and does it well. So unless the Raiders are overwhelmed by an offer, they should stand firm. Michael Mayer should be a part of the Raiders' long-term future, not someone you toss into a trade just to make headlines.